squadra senza età. Juve, Juve, cara gloriosa società. Mille bandiere bianconere intorno a noi ci fa sentire in campo 11 eroi, perciò cantiamo tutti in coro. Lea Juventus, è un inno che la forza ci dà. Nostra la vittoria sarà. Forza Juve, il comunale grida già. Forza Juve, è bianconera la città. Mille bandiere sempre ovunque intorno a noi ci fa sentire in campo 11 eroi, perciò cantiamo tutti in coro. Lea Juventus, è un inno che la forza ci dà. Lea Juventus, e nostra la vittoria sarà. Ci dà. Juventus, e nostra la vittoria sarà. Juventus, è un inno che la forza ci dà.
Well, welcome my fellow Juventini. Today I'm proud to officially launch the Juventinita Back to Black and White podcast. I know it's been a long few months for everyone, and I hope to add something enjoyable for all the Juve fans. I'm hoping to bring you back to Juve's past, talk about the present, and hopefully dream of the future. For about 20 years, I've been lucky enough to be able to support and be a part of this great club with all of our great fans, watching many great moments, trials, tribulations, sadness, joy. And I just want to bring another outlet to the fans, with the fans, to tell you the story of La Juventus. Some people might say, why another Juve podcast? Well, I'm hoping to educate others as well as myself about our great club and the black and white stripes, as well as learning about what this club means to so many other great fans. Nostalgia, I'm getting older. Plain and simple. I hope to bring to light the many great and some not so great moments in the club's history in detail, so that allows for our younger fans and the newer fans, especially those Ronaldo fans. They need to feel the same passion we do, and I think this is hopefully the start. And quite simply, just to voice my opinion. Hopefully, most of the time it's positive, but we get in those moments negative. And I hope to keep my sanity throughout the following seasons, and even with all the winning so far, there seems to be a clear divide in the club's fan base on what it means to be a fan. So, this is my first podcast on my own, and I've been on someone pretty special's podcast multiple times now, and let's start this one off with a bang. And now we're able to present one of the best podcast hosts, if not the best, Juve podcast out there, and I have the pleasure of having on my first podcast the host of the 2019 Around Turin Best Podcast, the man of the people, the man of the fans, Alberto of all Juve Cast and Striped Hearts Apparel. What's going on, man? It's great to have you.
Hey, brother, it's an absolute honor to be a part of your first pod, man. I'm like look at this shirt, beautiful, man. No, I'm like a proud papa here today, man. It's like I've had you as a guest so many times, man. I love the fact that we can speak so freely to one another, and it's left at that. It's us chatting Juve. It is what it is. But yeah, man, it's awesome to see you start this up. I've always I have a huge appreciation, everyone can imagine, because I know how much time it takes and how much effort. But you've given me nothing but support from the start, and I will do the same in return. Because the more content we provide Juventini with is just better for everyone. You want to educate them on the history, the nostalgia. I love it. I think it's fantastic. So really, really excited. Thank you again for having me on episode 1. And man, I might turn into a trivia question here. Who's your first guest once you're out there rolling? By the way,
there we go.
hell of an intro, man. Geez, I should have you around all the time as my hype guy, man. Thank you.
Well, honestly, it seems like it's taken forever to get this thing going, and I definitely appreciate all of the work that all these other podcasts are doing, because it's just it's a lot from someone who isn't in this, let's say, background. But I thought it was, like I said, it just, as soon as I did the first podcast with you, it was just, it seems maybe that in negative times builds great bonds. And we weren't doing so well, and we kind of were. I thought we gelled pretty good. So it was a hell of a lot of fun. So I said, well, hey, why not try it myself? But speaking of the merch, some of the sickest merch out there in the game, and we got the other shirts. Let's get those. Let's do some hype. That beauty, Claudio, and we got the Loyal Brothers.
Yeah.
So guys, those are flying off the shelves. So make sure you get in contact with Alberto, and you'll get some sick stickers, some beautiful Del Piero photos and stuff like that. And you've been putting in the work. You got these videos on YouTube, and you've been doing a great job.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it's just grinding away. Anything for the Juventini, man. The shirts just come about because I have a very close friend of mine who has a clothing company, and he offered me an opportunity to make my own kind of designs for fun and whatnot. And I thought, man, what a great thing if I could tie this in, with the podcast and the community that we have, and build something for all of us. So I said, rather than me, making my own shirts, how about Juventini get to design the shirts, and we get to pick on designs that we want to see go into production, and have our own line of apparel for the fans. I thought that would be just awesome. And so far it's been great, and I thank everybody for the support and reaching out, and it's been going very, very strong, and I look forward to some cool new designs and drops coming out soon.
I definitely look forward to seeing those. One of the reasons I want to, obviously, Del Piero, my favorite player. That's no surprise. And unfortunately, he has had some problems with some kidney stones. So I just wanted to quickly say Forza Ale, and hopefully you get a smooth recovery. I know it is a pretty painful experience and ordeal. But hopefully he gets back up and better than ever. But and then also, I'd just like to say to everyone, I hope some condolences to anyone who's lost anyone in this time of the coronavirus, and just hope everyone's doing well and not too stressful, maybe finding some new passions, and just trying to make the best situation out of this tough time, and hopefully we can get back to normal as soon as possible. So speaking of coronavirus, let's get into this. We've had now a suspended season. Now they've moved the last day, I guess, of the suspension to June 14th, 2020. Cases have been significantly dropping in Italy, and deaths are also under 100 a day, which is great to hear. In Canada, it really hasn't, I would say it's been bad, but it hasn't really come close, which is, thank God for that. And so just what are your thoughts? Like, should we restart the season, cancel it? What do you think, Albert?
I mean, if it's safe to do so, I say let's get the season done. Like, let's play it through as long as it's safe to do so. Some of the reports were speculating that after the group training session commences, and they get closer to the season, one positive case, and they'll actually shut things down. If it was going to be that strict, for me, why even bother? You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
exactly.
It's strict. I think one case is inevitable. I think if, oh man, I mean, if it's safe to do so, just continue the season, get it done. I don't think Italy, like Serie A, can afford any champion with an asterisk. You know,
Yeah.
if you're gonna have a champion with an asterisk, you just gotta shut it down. Could you imagine if it was Juve with an asterisk? I mean, we just don't need it, right? So yeah,
Sul campo.
yeah, I think we just ride it out and see as long as the numbers stay manageable. But I mean, to say that one positive case amongst it is going to shut everything down, I think that's unrealistic because one's going to be inevitable. These guys have been isolated at home. Nobody's been really, truly getting, not everyone has been getting tested. And then we also know that there's people that can have it and be carriers that are not showing any symptoms. So, I mean, just to say you're not going to get one, I don't see it happening. But I think
Yeah.
it's very important for them to try to finish the season. I mean, from a financial standpoint, and just to try and carry things on, or shut everything down, and you essentially start the next season off as this particular one, right? But then it gets kind of interesting because what happens with contracts, and
Yep.
there's just so much that changes that I think it's just easier if they could find a way, even if they have to squeeze things in just to get it, as long as it's manageable, because the Champions League schedule is outrageous. It actually is outrageous.
Yeah.
Trying to finish that off in 3 weeks it's too much. It's too much.
2 months break.
Yeah.
I know
And
it's been tough and guys aren't
the other
training but
yeah. The other thing that kind of comes to mind for me is what happens if a player, has to be isolated and whatnot? That player isn't available to this team. What kind of a disadvantage, depending on the
yeah.
player, is this giving to that club? And yet you're still trying to continue. So there's just a lot of uncertainty, man. It's really, really tough to say how this thing's gonna pan out. But I mean, yeah, they're gonna have to make these decisions beforehand, and I don't see that happening because we all know how organized they are there. And unfortunately, yeah, because I mean, these are the questions they should be asking right now.
Oh, exactly.
All the what ifs, and hash it out. What
Yeah.
if Dybala can't play for Juve? Are they still participating? Do we still continue on with the league? Because that's a huge loss, right? Like
Yeah.
you take a key guy from a team, now all of a sudden he's gone 14 days, but you want to get the rest of the games going. Man, it's still going to be an asterisk depending on what happens. So you just got to avoid that, right?
Yeah, I think what's going to happen is to be honest, I think there's always going to be an asterisk. It's like in the NHL when they had the lockout season, and some people still dispute Chicago's cup winning.
Yeah.
But like, so again, I think that's unavoidable. One thing I think we have to kind of either cancel this season and then we might have to move next season because there's no reason why we're not going to get one case now or we're going to get a case in August or a case in September.
Yeah.
So they got to be really careful. Testing needs to be like mandatory and frequent. And I think a lot of the times I think there's a lot of backlash and people are like rightly so that they don't want this because they don't want certain people to get hurt and like older people are at risk, right? We know that. So and people with certain conditions. So, but at the end of the day, we have to move forward. We have to make the tough decisions, and we also have to know that we're gonna have to work harder than we have ever worked before. Because at the end of the day, again, like I said, it doesn't matter if it's now or at the end of the year. Who knows if we're ever going to get a vaccine? Maybe we do, maybe we don't. That'll make it a lot easier, but I think it's still going to be very difficult. And what did you think of the Bundesliga's start again? Kind
Well,
of weird, hey? How they had like the players on the bench 2 meters apart when they should all
just
be tested.
talk about it. Just exactly highlighting what we were just discussing. Like, I mean, what are you really going to do? I mean, these are all the what ifs you have to ask. At the end of the day, you're playing a contact sport. You know, like the goal celebrations, they can't go near each other. They're sitting meters away on the bench, but it doesn't really matter because at the end of the day, you're shoulder to shoulder with guys like playing a physical sport. It makes no sense, right? So it's bizarre. It's bizarre to watch, right?
And then in terms of, I think the players like you're mentioning, I think what we're gonna have to do is just accept the fact that, you know, I know it's gonna be, hey, if Dybala goes down, it's gonna be horrible. But I think if we are gonna move on with the season, we just have to be like, you know what, it is what it is. Get the season done with. And again, there's gonna be certain risks that are gonna have to be taken. And again, like the questions are gonna have to be asked. And like you said, it doesn't seem like there's a competent decision making process. I mean, they moved it one day for I don't know what
Yeah, they're just
reasoning.
not on the same page, right? You know, government and then FIGC, like it's just everything's, yeah, there's just back and forths and nobody's on the same page, just making a decision and making the stand and saying this is what it is, like definitively, right? So I don't know. It'll be a gong show. I mean, I would never expect anything out of Serie A to come easily and smoothly.
But it was nice to see the Bundesliga. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, and even UFC did 3 events just this past week, and it was, to be honest, for me, it was awesome to get back. I know it was tough, and they did a great job, but it was actually really nice to see some sports again.
Oh, for sure. I was watching a goddamn EMLS tournament just because I was like hurting to watch sports so bad. Yeah, I
But
mean, like I say, if we can do it, let's do it.
so we were speaking about how things might not be normal. How do you think, let's say, this transfer, you know, there's been a lot of transfer news, and are they just going to continue on with the transfer season as usual? I guess for now they are, but that could change depending
Yeah,
on how things play out, if the transfer market's going to open or not. What do you
yeah.
think?
It's gonna depend on yeah, exactly what happens. If they continue on, if they can wrap the season up, or do they put a freeze on and then continue later and just call the season a wash, right? Yeah, we'll have to see how that all pans out. All the speculation leads to obviously they're banking on the season being completed and having a transfer window. Um, we know that these clubs are losing a lot of money. The last report I saw for Juve was 122 million euros lost revenue, and that's factoring in the 90 million euros that they saved on wages on guys taking cuts. So we know there's going to be swap deals. There'll probably be one, maybe two, if it's a bargain outright purchases, I think, for Juve, but the rest is going to be swap deals.
Yeah,
Um,
it's crazy. It's almost like the season is just running its course with all this, with all the amount of news that we've been getting. It's been actually crazy to see
yeah,
that there's been rumors out the yin yang about who's coming, who's going, who's said that they've wanted to come, like De Bruyne. Then the Arthur saga, Rabiot not wanting
it's
to come back.
it makes sense. I mean, there's, I mean, you have to be proactive. I mean, you have to anticipate what the possible outcome is and be prepared. So I'm not surprised actually at all that there's this much news as far as links with players and, figuring out what they're going to do. It kind of makes sense because it's definitely not going to be a normal transfer window, that's for sure. And they know the money that they've lost throughout this, and all the teams are kind of in the same boat. So, yeah, it kind of makes sense. And the other thing is too, like there was some Juventini, well, actually throughout this whole past 2-3 weeks that I've been saying, they find it so bizarre, and it looks like our transfer mercado right now has no direction. Well, that makes sense to me that it looks like that because they have to cover their bases. Because when you're dealing with swap deals, I mean, when you look at what Juve's got to offer in swaps, it's
Yeah,
not the best, right? So somebody could come
exactly.
in and scoop the deal like that, right? So yeah, it makes sense that they're looking at multiple different options. And the whole Archer thing, I actually posted today. I think the reason the rumblings have begun to kind of make it seem like Tonali's going to hit the merda is because um, I just think that if Arthur does agree, Juve is going to back out of Tonali. And to
Oh
me, it
man.
should. To me they shouldn't. But I have a feeling that that's how they're playing it out.
So I came up with some names obviously, but that's a great point, right? Tonali, and if you think about it, like you said, Sensi, Barella, some names. Why does it seem like we continually miss on highly rated players? Is it just that you know we're not planning the management isn't really planning properly, or is it just that I mean, Juve obviously Juve is an attractive destination. It just seems like these Italian players, we're not in the discussion, or we drop out for whatever reason. And I don't know if that's a mixed message from the club or just not offering the right, not being professional, let's say.
I think.
Because I know your opinion on Holland, so
Oh
and
yeah.
right, and
And is that
it
not
seems that. Oh, go
is
ahead.
that is sorry, is that not coming to fruition though? What I said, we were literally passing up on this guy not being able to promise Haaland minutes because of a guy that we've tried to push away 2 seasons in a row, and now we're going to push him away for probably two prospects who aren't even close to Haaland. How
Yeah.
hilarious is that?
Well, it's just, and I know I've mentioned this like multiple times on your podcast, especially when we played Ajax. Ajax is a team that they have to have faith in their youth because they don't, let's say, have as much money as the other clubs. So they're forced basically, and they've traditionally had an academy that's produced superstars. So, but they have the faith. Like I remember in the second half, they were throwing on guys you've never heard of before, and they've had complete faith into going into a second leg Champions League quarterfinal and to get the job done. Juve traditionally has never been that way. And I think we really need to change because we're losing a lot of guys that were on our team. Well, that could be there's a twofold answer why we're losing a lot of talented guys, but and a lot of guys that aren't necessarily coming. So if we're to lose on Tonali, that is going to be a huge blow, especially for the amount of money that is being talked about. It's crazy.
Yeah, I think there's a couple things we have to look at, right? It's just management in general of contracts and salaries. To miss out on a guy like Haaland because, and all the Juventini that were like fighting me on that were saying the same thing. We can't give him the time. And I said, why can't we promise this kid the time he needs for half a season? I was like, we were halfway through the season. I said, so you're telling me now you would rather say no, we can't give you the time because of Higuain, who's probably going to be gone at the end of the season anyways? That makes zero sense to me. Um, Promise him that time. Don't worry about Higuain because he's going to go anyways. And, I'm sorry if that affects people like loyalty wise because of what he's given us and whatnot and all a lot of great memories. But we have to be realistic in the fact that Higuain, if they could have, wouldn't have even been with us this season.
Yeah.
If they weren't handcuffed with him, he wouldn't have even been there. So now to turn down Halan on playing time because because we have Higuain, who you've tried to move 2 seasons in a row, you're gonna move him at the end of this anyways because you're completely locked. Like you have to
Yeah.
get wage off the books. That's crazy to me. That's backwards business.
Yeah.
Now, when we talk about Tonali, Sensi, Barella, like the Italian players, like we've discussed it and whatnot, but we're losing our ties with the Azzurri, and I feel it is because of the fact that we rather go with a bigger name and a name outside of Italy to draw in more attention or
International tension, yeah.
exactly right, more exposure
Brand.
from different regions or fans from different parts of the world. And we've never actually been that way. Like we've always had close ties with the Azzurri, and we are going this way. And you can see it because there's no reason we can't pick up some of these guys. They're better transfer deals, even if you're talking about a free. If you're going to go out and get a free, well, now all of a sudden everything we save, we pay out the yin yang because of the salaries, right? Whereas Barella would have been an instant boost. Stefano Sensi would have been an instant boost at a time where we needed midfielders desperately. Yep. And they would have been, sure, 30 to 40 mil, but the wage would have been way less than what we've given Rabiot and Ramsey, right? So it's just, to me, the only thing I could think of is we're starting to look at those names and the marketing side of it, and we're missing out on some of the deals we should be going after. I think you have to have a good balance of it all. There's nothing wrong with getting the names, but I do feel like sometimes we ignore the most important thing, which is the actual team you're building on the pitch. Whereas back in the day, and I know you want to get into a nostalgia thing and talk about the past, that's one thing you could always bank on in the past. We were building for what we had on the pitch. It had to make sense on the pitch, and you always had these guys that Juve would pick up, but they would fit. Lippi was the best at it. He talked about it all the time. Lippi said it was all about the what they had on the pitch. He goes, you cannot have a pitch full of the same elite calories. Like you can't. You have to have your Contes, at the time. Not anymore. You have to have your you have to have your Tacchinardi, your Deschamps. Like you have to have that, right? Well, and right now I feel like it's a little scattered. It's like we want guys with even Blaise Matuidi. Like, I mean, when we look back on signing Blaise Matuidi, like the way they try to sell him off, like we signed World Cup winning Blaise Matuidi, but I mean, my God, man, I don't. It didn't make sense at the time with the other names that were floating around and whatnot. I'm just like, Blaise Matuidi, and trying to sell it to us because we got him from PSG or something. Like that's supposed to mean something to Juve.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because, like, again, a big topic, it seems to always be under discussion now is the management decisions, right? These contracts. And I think a lot of the time we're putting our foot in our mouth by, I don't know if it's just the fact that they're trying to be like Marotta, but like use it with Paratici, because if you look at these free transfers, they weren't, again, like you said, it could be a brand thing and internet. Like obviously we brought someone from Wales, from France, but it almost looks like they're trying to like juggle a horrible financial situation, whereas you look at, like, we're getting rid of some of our great talents because we've signed stupid contracts. So we've allowed Matuidi to get an option. We've signed Mandzukic for a season. I'll even say it now, and I know a lot of people we've signed Tech to an extension of $7 million. We've signed Higuain to, let's say, a questionable contract. And then what we'll do is we'll have to play the Plus Valenza game where we'll have to balance everything out. So that means we have to get rid of Moise Kean, and we have to get rid of Pellegrini and Spinazzola, because we have to play this circus of making the numbers look good, and then that just screws us because we're not fitting. We're trying to fit financially, not necessarily fit a system. And then you got to blame the management too, because they waited to sign Sarri 2 weeks before the season starts. So it's just like it's just a domino effect almost.
Some of the extensions, I mean, I'm fine with. I mean, I think you really got to look at position, you got to look at longevity, you got to look at the guy, what he's given to you. Ultimately, for me, an extension would have to tie into production. If that guy is consistent, whatever. That's why I didn't really have an issue with the Tech one, honestly, because at that position you could play a long time anyways, and he's been solid for us. He's been better than he's been at any other club,
Right.
for sure.
I agree with that.
Some of the other ones, yeah, I mean, no, there's issues there. I mean,
Kadira.
look at what happened with Mandzukic, man. You know, I think we had to pay for that team to take him.
Yep.
And no disrespect to Mandzukic, I love him, but he didn't. You can't hand out extensions like that. Kadira one was awful, just awful. And meanwhile, we're finally trying to lock in Dybala after trying to push him away. So when people really want to say that the management is doing fantastic and they're doing great, all I can think about in my head is we tried to push Paulo Dybala hard last summer. That to me is an epic fail. That is a highlight of failure, because that shows just how handcuffed you made yourself, that you were trying to actually sell Paulo Dybala. That's mind-boggling to me. And that right there highlights it on its own. I love the club. Does the management, have they made some great pickups? Sure. But they've also made some brutal decisions when it comes to contracts and the salaries they hand out.
Yeah, no, I think we've taken for granted winning over the past 9 years, and we thought that we could get away with doing all these free transfers and signing some, because really we had no competition, and now it's backfiring, because then you add a signing, like, I know in this podcast particularly we're not going to get into Ronaldo because that could go on forever, but you add that amount of money coming in, that salary, and it just makes the whole situation, even though there are benefits to having him, like, there's a lot of benefits to having him, but it also puts a lot of pressure on us doing really well really quickly, and it just exacerbates all the mistakes that we made in other parts of the team. So,
I think with the Ronaldo thing, I mean, you know, we've discussed it a lot, and I think at the time we all believed, and I think we were right to believe, that we were probably that piece away. You know, we were consistently making it deep in champs, and all of a sudden you get the ultimate Champions League player. You know, you get this sense of belief, and you think, yeah, that's going to be that missing cog. All of a sudden, Allegri stays on. You start playing, nothing changes. If anything, you almost regress, right? And it's frustrating. In hindsight, you start looking at it. Could that money been spread out? Sure. But at that time, I don't think any one of us would have said no to Ronaldo. You know what I mean?
no.
Like, I just don't think you can do that at that
Oh,
time.
yeah.
If you're
In
youth.
hindsight's
What it
always
did was,
2020.
yeah, but what it did was it just showed us, you know, like, were we essentially just overachieving with the club we had? You know what I mean? Like, it just
Fair
like,
point.
it kind of just makes you think, like, man, were we really just the king of grinding, you know, and just like we
Green Tech
just like,
Kings.
we're just pulling this out, you know, in these constant late European, you know, Champions League finishes. We were just grinding it out and shouldn't have really been there, because then all of a sudden you add Ronaldo and you're just like, wow, things didn't get better at all. Like, we need this, we need that. And it's like, well, how do we go from being one piece away to needing to, you know, a whole revolution of the club, right? So it's kind of crazy when you think about it, right? But yeah, I mean, it is what it is with the financials and you know, the contracts and everything like that. I mean, if one good thing has come through all this, maybe it is the eye opener for Juve, as the discussion has come up now that they are probably going to self-administer a salary cap system. Obviously, there's guys that are above the reported 9 million. You know, Delict, Ronaldo, there might be one more in there. But what does this do for Dybala? Because we know Dybala was wanting more than 10 mil.
Yep.
So I think what it's going to be is it's not going to be so strict, set in stone, because Juve would just be shooting themselves in the foot unless the other giants did the same thing and imposed
Exactly.
a salary cap. Otherwise, they're just going backwards. So I think it's going to be more of a guideline for them. And to be honest, they need it, because if we start looking at some of the money, and I had this discussion with quite a few Juventini, because people know where I stand with Alexandro, and there's a guy making 6.5 million, and it's just, for me, I still see a guy that got outplayed by Spinazzola that made barely 1 mil. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And I think Luca Pellegrini is going to come in, and I wouldn't be surprised if he takes his spot. And there's another kid with a lower salary cap. Sandro still holds good value. I move him. I take that financial gain and I help boost another spot, whether it's in the midfield or it's in the right back. But take that gain, because there's a couple options out there that you can pick up for left back. We can pull Pellegrini in. He's ours. Recall him, and take a swing at Tellus for 30 mil. Take a swing at Palmieri for 40 mil. You know what I mean? And just have but you'll still have that game, because Sandro holds really, really good value, and there's a lot of clubs that want him. So I take that and take that financial gain, lower your salary at that position, and just kind of try to recover where you've handcuffed yourself. Just make some changes.
I think it's going to be difficult. Like I said, I think it was the right thing to do. I think everyone for the next couple of years is going to be handcuffed, just because of the loss in revenue to all teams. And especially looking at the half-year report last night, we already had a loss of 50 million up to December of last year. And now you're saying, I believe you said 120 or 150 around there. So
22 is what it was reported. Yeah.
So it's going to be very difficult. And so we're going to have to make some really smart decisions. But moving on, I know this terms, I've said it multiple times, and a lot of people are talking about it, J Corp. So I got a question for you. Does management really care that the stadium is turning into a theater like in England? And, we're barely filling the stadium, it seems, even with the likes of Ronaldo. You look at the season ticket numbers have come down. The Serie A for last year, or the half season, had dropped by a few million. Same with Champions League. So I don't know. It just seems like the issues with the Curva Sud and now having a broader fan base around the world is really kind of just exacerbating the whole situation. So what do you think?
It's tough it's tough to answer that question when you say, do they care about the fans? As a fan, you would love to say yes. They care about the fans, but I think it's more of Agnelli putting his foot down for, it's one of those punish them all for the few type scenarios where, there are those guys that were wrong in what they were doing, and he's making a stand against them. And unfortunately, it affects a lot of hardcore Juventini that did no wrong. It's a really unfortunate situation. The part that really bothers me, though, is the fact that they will allow visitor fans to do what the
All
home
of that.
can't. That part I really, really struggle with, and it's hard to answer that question with a yes when you could be so blatant about it, and allow visitors to have their banners, to have their noisemakers, to do whatever, and you're literally telling your faithful, no, you can't bring that in, you can't do this. And it's just that's just honestly, we've come on Agnelli's 10-year.
Exactly.
And honestly, this is the one knock I honestly have. What he's done is fantastic. He's brought us back in, where we need to be amongst the elite. But this is just one knock for me that it's a tough pill to swallow when you've been following the club for so long. And you see what it's come to, right? Because you remember
Yep.
before. You remember the Stadio dell'Alpi, you remember when Jay Stadium opened up,
Exactly.
and you see this gradual,
Just drop in
yeah.
in passion and in everything.
And
And
I had a good discussion with a Juventino actually today, where we were talking about it and talking about the fans and talking about Agnelli and the club. And I said, this is my knock against him. It's a tough pill to swallow. And I feel bad for the people that spend so much money to go, that travel, and they essentially are being robbed of what the experience should be, in my
yeah,
opinion.
yeah, exactly. And I think as a management, you have to like, especially with your hardcore fans, either be Ultra, Curva Sud, whoever, you need to rectify that because, you know, I was listening to another podcast. I don't know if you know who Poet and Vuj is. They were on Copa 90. I used to watch a lot of their videos, and now they've kind of gone on their own. But they were speaking in terms of in England because they have a lot. Obviously, they have their tickets are even more than what they're charging in Italy, and they're saying a lot of these guys are making £25,000, £50,000 a year, and they're spending 10 to 20,000 in travel, tickets, merch,
Yeah.
whatever. And a lot of people like I get into it really irks me when I hear people saying, yeah, but it's not the same price as in North America. And it's like, well, I don't see you guys at the games every weekend screaming your asses off. And I mean, again, everyone shows their sport. I mean, it is difficult to get to Europe, but these guys are literally dedicating their lives at the detriment of probably even their own families, right? They're not seeing their wife, their kids, whatever. And I think it's sad to see just some things kind of that I
You,
were interesting though. In 2017, Agnelli had that ban for selling tickets to the Ultras. And obviously that was lifted and there was a game that was played behind closed doors. But then in 2019, there was that nationwide investigation where they were working with the prosecutors to ban these like leaders. And again, like I said, there has been definite issues with racism. And again, I don't think that it's fair to blame uh, the whole sector because it clearly isn't that. But it almost just seems suspicious how they were calling it blackmail in 2019, but they were literally selling tickets. So I think really what the club needs to do as a solution is either go the Real Madrid route and just pay those fans in behind there, or just let it be and let
I
it.
was gonna bring up the whole Real Madrid thing because not a lot of people actually realize that white sector for them behind the goal is actually all people that are paid by the club to be
Yep.
there to do that. But how plastic is that though? Like that's just brutal. Like for me, my God,
Well, I mean, like,
pick your poison.
yeah,
You're paying people to do that, or you have silence. Like I mean, pick your
yeah,
poison. I mean, let's just it's see you bring up the racism and for me it's the same. I mean, to punish everybody for a couple meatheads is just crazy to me, right? It's 2020. Same with racism. I mean, we have enough technology. You can pick these people out, get them out, give them their lifetime bans. And you know what? If there's people doing the same with tickets and creating issues that Nelly doesn't like, do the same. Don't punish the entire sector. Um,
yeah.
and
No, no, but my,
what?
my point with
I
that is,
want to hear I want to hear the players speak out, and
yeah,
we have. There's reports of guys like Dybala, I think Chiellini
Chiellini.
as well. I think even Bonucci actually speaking up about the involvement of the Curva and how they need them and want them going and whatnot, and that they hope that it
Yeah.
resolves itself amongst the club. That right there, to get no reaction from the club, um, is kind of crazy to me.
Yeah, I just the reason why I brought those two events up is because it just seemed that like it was an okay practice until law enforcement like got involved, right? Like they were giving away free tickets, which then sure they would go scalp them, right? Which is
Yeah.
technically illegal. everywhere. I mean, it's still done.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. When I go to a hockey game, you still see those guys waiting out there. But it's just the fact that there's really been nothing. And, like everyone always says, well, screw the Curva Sud and we don't need them there. And I mean, at the end of the day, I see it like this. If those guys don't renew their season tickets, we're not filling that stand.
Yeah.
Like if they I mean, as much as we like to say that we fill the stadium, it's tough when you have a fan base that's worldly, right? Like a lot of people can't take the time to go to every home game or even every away game. So like I said, they could, and I'm surprised they haven't done it because there's been walkouts in England and in various parts, and some teams like for Liverpool apparently it worked. Arsenal had a lot of back and forth, and it didn't really seem like anything changed. But yeah, no, it's a difficult situation, man. I hope
Yeah.
it gets cleared.
Any way you slice it, it's just a tough situation. I mean, we want to see it resolved, but I mean, I'm not holding my breath at the fact of how long it's actually gone on.
Yeah,
It's pretty disappointing, and I mean, it's tough for anybody to really, you know, again, I understand Agnelli to a degree, but I just don't think he needs to punish everybody for it. That's all. And these fans, like, I mean, we have to realize that the Curva, the people that we're talking about are the ones that actually travel to
oh
away
yeah,
games all the time. Like, they're spending a lot transportation wise, accommodation, meals, and it's not just the tickets, it's not just the ticket price, it's
yeah,
everything. And they're like diehard. So to start taking away, um, the literally the beating heart of our sector in away matches and everything like that is pretty rough to think about, as a fan, especially as, a diehard Juventino that's watched this club for so long. I mean, Jesus, who doesn't have these chants that these guys run on their cell phones? Like I've
yeah,
got a bunch on my phone, ringtones and stuff. Like it's them, man. Like they're the beating heart. I mean, I want to see
exactly.
it resolved. I want to see it resolved.
And that's what's really what motivates the stadium. I mean, if you think of a game that comes to mind is that Atletico game at home. I mean, thank God that
Oh yeah,
they had changed their mind. But and
yeah,
then kind of like you said, it is the 10. We've had you know a really successful 10 years under Agnelli,
yeah.
compared to a lot of other clubs. You think where we were before he was named the chairman, and the only thing that I kind of have been seeing again shades of really looking just for these bigger cash paydays, and in terms of multiple times talking about a super league, comments about clubs not deserving to be in the Champions League, basically to preserve capital like Atalanta. And I know some people contest what he really meant, but that's to be debated. And I mean, really, if you look at him, he was a pretty smart businessman because he came at the perfect time. He had the name, he had the money, the history, and a club that has been relegated. So it almost seemed like it was the perfect scenario for him to make really a lot of money. But it just doesn't seem like. I know a few years ago we had kept claiming that Champions League was the goal, and then we would get knocked out, and then it would be like, oh well, we would renege on that for, I don't know. I think we need to, like I said, one criticism, like we said with Allegri, was that we need to say that we're contenders and we got to go. And I think management also had that where they weren't necessarily all in if it didn't go our way. And I don't know. I question that a bit. That and the fans, I think my two biggest knocks really when it comes to Agnelli. I mean, the rest he's done a pretty phenomenal job, like you said, from where we were.
Absolutely, he has. Yeah, for me, the knock is the fans. I mean, that situation's rough. And I mean, there's a bunch of little other scenarios that come up along the way, and then when we had to wait how long for fans to get reimbursed for their tickets when the match went behind closed doors, things like that. It's just, for me, it's just, it leaves such a sour taste in your mouth, after, if you're a fan that, I'm a kit collector. Spend a lot of money on kits each year. I know you do as well.
Yep.
We join the fan clubs. We spend money on the merch. There's the fans that travel out there once a year, sometimes twice, to watch matches and stuff like that. And then when you do things like that, oh my God, like, come on. It's just,
Yep.
it's just so disheartening, like, you don't need that money.
Yeah.
It's not going to make or break anything,
Like I think the season tickets for the increase gave us 2 million extra.
Yeah,
2 million euros extra for the whole increase.
it's such a small piece of the pie. That's
Exactly.
what really bothered me the most about when they came out with the first comment, the first release that was essentially legal mambo jumbo for saying that we'll give you a discount at our online store.
Yeah.
That's essentially what the first one come out, and it was just like, I just remember thinking, like, if I had a ticket, I would be so choked right now. And is it enough? Like, there were some fans saying, like, just essentially, like, screw you, Juve.
Yep.
I'm so pissed off you. Like, that's not enough for me to, like, ever you know jump ship or anything. I don't think they'd ever do anything that would actually cause me to jump ship, but it definitely like is upsetting and just like so unnecessary, you know. But yeah, it's those little things that they start to they just start to leave these bad feelings and start to feel that distance,
Yeah.
distance from the club.
Yeah. So I think now we just want to quickly touch on some financials. Like I said, I almost kind of thought we, in a sense, dodged a bullet with this coronavirus in terms of our financials, because I'm going to assume that FFP is probably not going to be as, let's say, strict. I guess we'll find out what UEFA and FIFA are going to come up with. But I mean, we were trending definitely to post a third consecutive loss, which would mean that we would be under sanctions of financial fair play. But yeah, it's definitely interesting to see what's going to happen in the next year or two. But yeah, definitely we got to get that in order. Just some interesting things, though. Like I said, I did read the financials. I think when it comes to Juve and like in terms of the state of the club, I think there's certain things that we need. We bring Ronaldo in for that presence, and you look at stadium rights, jersey apparel, jersey sponsorship, right? And I just kind of was generally looking through the numbers, and we're doing pretty good for a big club, but I think that's one thing that they really need to push more is just getting more money. It didn't really seem like the Ronaldo factor is really playing in, because when you look at Jeep, yes, we did get a raise from 17 to 42, but that's our company, or sorry, that's Exor's company, FCA's, right? So really, it's not like someone was jumping like a Fly Emirates, who I believe give like 80 million, like crazy numbers for like Real Madrid. And again, it's building, like we can't jump too quickly, like we've talked
It's
about in
kind
the
of funny.
past.
It's kind of funny when you think about that, though, like, because Jeep is, yeah, obviously Exors, right? And
Yeah.
it's like, so Agnelli owns obviously Exor, so it's like you're taking it from one pocket and putting in another. But if you're gonna do that, why not? Why is it 42? Like, make it 90 or something. Like, like, make it to your advantage.
Yeah,
It's
I don't
kind of
know if there's
just kind of
what
funny
the yeah, I don't know how how that accounting work, and then depending
because it's all
on
part of your revenue, right?
yeah,
when fee so those are all factors in FFP, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, that's the funny part to me is if you're in control of that anyways,
Yeah.
like just use it to your advantage. It's kind of funny.
And then you look at like Adidas, we're on kind of that lower end. We got 50 million, which is still pretty good, but I think there's a lot of work. I mean, for us to get out of our woes, I think there's a lot of work that we need to put in to get those numbers up towards the levels of the Man U's, the Real Madrid's, and
I
that's
think
what we definitely need to be striving.
I think part of it is we need the support of the rest of Syria.
That too.
We
Yeah.
need the big clubs to get their head out of their ass and get back into the show, right? We need Milan to like stop thinking about yesteryear there and actually wake up and become a club again. Merida, nice resurgence. As much as we don't want to see it, it's actually good. We need it. Lazio, we need them going strong. Roma, we need them go. We need Serie A to get back to the way it was in the 90s,
Exactly.
early 2000s when it was essentially the balls, and that's what we need. That's the only thing because like if you think about all this that you're talking and you're bringing up, it's like you know how come a team that's won 8 straight Scudetti, all these Coppa Italia is like, why are we so low? And we're constantly in deep rounds in the Champions League. But you look at the money that these other giants make, and it's like, why? Like the Premiership's got huge, huge TV. You know what I mean? Like, so
Exactly.
they're just so overhyped. It's crazy, but it works and it helps all those clubs,
Oh,
right?
exactly. Yeah, just it helps with everything across the board.
Spain, La Liga, I mean, same thing. Like they've got a good production. It's Serie A is so poorly produced. Um, it's crazy to me. All of us that follow and support it, we know the truth. We know the truth
Yeah.
about the game, and it's a fantastic league and everything. But if you were to watch a match side by side from the Spanish League or the Premiership, you will notice how nice the pitch looks, how they juice the audio so it
Yeah.
sounds like that stadium's just rocking, right? Like, and Serie A just doesn't have that production value,
It's like
and they
it's
don't
like we're in
have.
the Stone Age.
Yeah, it's just it's not there, right? But that's part of it. The other thing is the big clubs. Milan's non-existent. Like they have to come up in order for us to take the next step we want as well.
Yeah, and I think in terms of again, in terms of a brand and in terms of competition, it's always better to have teams, closer races, and better teams in the league because it just does it's obviously going to attract more fans. Now, I know I've heard your opinion on the jerseys.
Yeah.
I'm not a massive fan of the home jersey. I mean, sure we got our black stripes, but it just looks like three Vespas drove over that Real Madrid kit, doesn't it?
I mean, the kits I prefer, like I thought back on this on a couple of my favorite Juve kits, and they're a little more predominantly black. This one is just very, very white to me. It looks a little pretty. And then the stripes are not the casual stripes. I don't mind it though. I mean, is it the worst? No, not by a long shot. We got stripes. It's okay. For me, that third kit is just awful. Like that Halloween puke thing is just brutal. Like I don't even know what to say. But I don't know, man. It's after a half and half kit, I mean, I think that's
Yeah,
probably why it doesn't seem as bad.
yeah, exactly. I think Nike kind of looking back. I think Nike kind of got lucky because third jerseys weren't really a thing until about I would say I don't know 2010 and beyond. So we would recycle our away jerseys
Well, Nike
into our third, and then
Nike was notorious for like. Here's the thing, like it's funny because I'm coming up with a little something, a little project. I'm not gonna let the cat out of the bag here, but as I look through the jerseys and I look through Kappa, obviously was the king,
yeah,
uh, but Nike and Adidas. you have such contrasting things here. Like Nike was, it was literally like I'm buying the same thing every year. Like that was Nike's thing, was
Yeah,
like, okay, instead of the black stripe being on the middle, now this year we're gonna have the white one on
yeah.
the middle and the black. Like that's all they did. It was
And
just like,
wider stripes,
okay,
diagonal stripes,
now we're gonna
whatever.
do some blurry stripes now,
Yeah,
but it was like, oh yeah, okay, black down the middle, no, now white down the middle. They were so simple. Oh, we'll put a collar on this one. Okay, cool. Adidas is just like, Adidas actually when they started had really, really nice kits for us. I gotta say the first like few
started
years,
strong.
man, they were stellar. Like that, I think it was 15, 16. All three were banging. 17, 18 home kit, man, that was nice because it was like a touch of of the old school
Yeah,
with the white cuff around here and the button up. Like really, really nice kits. Have they
yeah.
had their
That's the best one, I think.
have they had their misses? Oh yeah. Has Nike had their misses? Oh yeah. I think you just like if you look at the two, the overall bodies of work, I think honestly would even out. They both had some bangers, they both had some misses, but Nike overall felt like it was too much the same, and then Adidas feels like it's too sporadic all over the map. But overall, they both had some beauty kits, and Adidas has arguably had two of like, or no, sorry, they both arguably have had two of the best ever in the blacks, the Nike black with the white
Yeah,
armbands, and
true.
then the Adidas black and gold. So yeah,
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what they come up next year. But yeah, no, I guess back to black and white stripes. I kind of think we need to move in a direction towards, I really like what PSG is doing with Jordan. I think it's given them a huge exposure, and obviously them being with Nike, it gives them that option. I think Adidas though also has a lot of brands that they could utilize. Like there is a Yeezy that is black and white, that is called a zebra. There is, and then again, there's multiple brands. There's Supreme, Kith. So Palace, I was kind of disappointed that Palace was kind of. I don't know if that was more pushed by Adidas, and I don't know if you're how much of a hype beast you are, if you're into all the streetwear, but yeah, no, it's. I think they really need to get towards that because look how successful the Palace drop was,
yeah.
and that was one drop, and I think really you look at the 120th anniversary, you drop anything that's going to look really nice, Juve fans are going to come out in droves and buy it. So I think we need to kind of move towards those revenue streams because, again, you're bringing in the youth that are buying this like crazy. They're dropping big bucks on
And they're
on
working
all
it.
these shoes.
And Juve's working it. I mean, every year you see more and more of these just special kits
Yeah.
and like drops or whatever. So they're working it. I think they've picked up on that, and they're definitely. It's not going to be the end of it. They're just going to push forward. The Palace stuff. I thought the Palace stuff was actually pretty slick.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So I think now kind of let's get into a almost a the black sheep topic of Juve Twitter, and you know there's been some fun times, some back and forth, and some blow ups. Sometimes everyone turns into an asshole on Twitter. I'm guilty of that, but no, I find there's a lot of now like from 2011 2010 on, it almost seemed like we were this united front. I wasn't as heavy on Twitter. Obviously, maybe the last 5 years been pretty steady, but like at the beginning, it almost seemed like like because we had a joint cause, right? Us against the world. We're gonna come back. We're gonna win all these trophies, and we're gonna stick it down your throat. And then it almost seemed after once we hit the plateau almost of Cardiff, I find that's really when things started going sideways on Juve Twitter. I mean, there was wars back and forth, Allegri out, this and that. The only thing for me personally, what gets to me the most is just the amount of people that really need to go on there and state what a Juve fan is, and you have to be abiding by these guidelines, and you're not a Juve fan, hand your Juve card in. you're a Milan fan, you're a Merida fan, and I just noticed that there's a lot of like, it's just, I don't know, it's just not really, it's petty, to be honest. It's like, why can't we just all be fans and have our opinions? And yeah, we might not agree. And if that's the case, go our separate ways and still cheer for our club and hope for. But I don't know. I just find too many people like bashing on like this so-called negative side ever since, like I said, people had problems with, we started talking about Allegri and wanting him to move on, and it seemed like it continues, and now it's just a separate thing. And for me, it was really tough after last year because we got our wish, right? Most of the season we were raving about moving on and going in a new direction, and I find that I didn't really feel for it. I find it was kind of the worst season cheering for Juve in my personal opinion. And I felt really like, I don't know, uneasy, and like at the beginning of this season I was not really wanting to get back into it because it was just a constant like back and forth, and then everyone was getting on sorry, rightfully so. Again, like I said, everyone has their opinions on how he started. Did he have enough time? Not whatever. But it was just like, and I noticed even when I came on your podcast, like I was just like, I'd been going so hard defending a position and then just again and again. So it's just, I don't know. I don't know how you feel. Maybe give your opinion on how you've kind of seen this whole social space take off.
So I'm relatively new because I've only been on Twitter since start of the season in 2018, and yeah, I mean, the one biggest thing I will say, because when it was one thing that's like I noticed right away, is everybody kept this sheeps and cheer, like, here's the sheeps and the cheerleaders, and oh no, here's the negative people, oh, they're just the Juve bashers, they're not true fans. There was a lot of that when I first come in. Anybody who's familiar with my pod and everything, I mean, it was never about sides for me. I mean, we're all Juventini. How we choose to support and how we choose to, follow the club, that's our own individual prerogative, and we're entitled to do it in any way, shape, or form that we wish. And I've always believed that. And my podcast has always been open to all Juventini, no matter what your opinion is. And I spent a lot of 2018 when I first kind of hit the scene there, getting people on purpose from both sides. I would go back and forth from one extreme to the other, and I would play for a lot of my first season on the pod devil's advocate and just combat it and say, you really, and you would see how these people would open up, their point of views and actually say, yeah, you know what, that does actually make sense. I just think, just naturally with social media, it's very, very easy to just get defensive and get your back up against the wall if someone's kind of coming at your opinion, because you're always not doing this. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So when people come on the podcast, it's a lot different when you're face to face talking to somebody and you're hearing their voice, because you grasp that context. Whereas, sometimes we're quick, we're on the phone or something, we're responding, we're putting a tweet, and 7 different people can read a tweet 7 different ways.
Exactly.
And that's the kind of stuff that happens. But I will say that I have noticed a big shift. And I was actually talking to somebody about this probably about 2 or 3 days ago, that I feel the negativity is down a lot. There are moments here that fuel it here and there. Little sparks will come up, little battles will happen, and I mean, that's normal. But overall, in general, it's a much, much better platform on Twitter, and much more open to the multiple views and opinions. And there's a lot less attacking. And honestly, I think it's just because Allegri's gone. I think Allegri just created this crazy, crazy tension where it was just you were either with him or against him. There seemed to be no in between, you know. It was
Yeah.
just literally like Allegri
From one end to the other.
and it was just like you're on this side, you're on this side, and here was poor Alberto smack dab in the middle trying to trying to make a podcast out of this. But yeah, I think it's been a lot better. I mean, it's one thing that I've always prided myself and the all Juve cast for was that I never cared where you stood on opinion. I never cared. I never have. I still don't. If people agree with me or disagree with me, it's everybody's own opinion and they're entitled to it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that was kind of what really drew me is when you were so accepting to even just over a DM get onto a podcast. That's like, wow, that's like such a huge honor, right? Because you have your Joe Rogans, and I mean, I would never expect to be on a podcast like that. So when someone is like, hey, I want to hear what you're thinking. Tell us why you're pissed off about this game. Tell us why we played such a great game. To me, it was such an honor. And, I find that there's a lot of, I think now that Juve has gone quite big, there's a lot of content going out there. And I think a little bit too, there is some defensive, maybe natural, because you're putting your craft out there and, hey, look, now there's three others doing. And, for me, this is just, like you said, it's fun and talking to a bunch of people about what you love. And again, I hope to bring some of the people that I've bumped heads with, let's say.
Yeah.
And I think it's a lot easier. And like you said it perfectly. Context, from someone liking a tweet, every other tweet in a chain of tweets without a comment
Yeah.
is what gets you off. Just boils your blood. But it was just certain moments, and then there's other fans telling fans about not them losing money because Juve has such an archaic system is okay and it's your fault, and then you wonder why you're getting pissed off on Twitter, and then you see these big accounts liking, and then you wonder why you're blowing up. But no, like I said, I would love to have lots of different opinions on, and again, I think that was a great idea. And
the one thing is, you're going through this and you're getting into it now, which is awesome. It's great to see. One thing that you got to be prepared that you're putting yourself out there. And
exactly.
I could probably write a book with the things that I've heard and had to read and whatever with people coming at me. But honestly, just the one thing is, do what makes you happy. You have a huge amount of passion for Juve, ride that out. Don't let anybody stop you. And just remember that each and every day is what you make it, not when someone else, like, don't let someone else affect you whatsoever, man.
No, because at the end of the day, they're not the ones paying for you to fly out, to watch games, to buy jerseys, to buy subscription membership. That's all on you. So, no, I agree 100%. It's time to move on and just focus on yourself and collab with good people and make good content.
And the biggest thing is just don't try and be anything you're not. I've always, I think it's one of the things I hear a lot from people is they can appreciate that what you see with me is what you get. The people that have talked to me on Juve chats, the people that have, called in and we've just chat Juve or whatever, the Instagram lives I do, or now there's going to be a Twitter live on the weekend. Like, just what you see is what you get all the time with me, and that's the biggest thing, man. Just the genuineness, right? So just be who you are and you'll do great, man. You'll do great.
Yeah. So kindly, speaking of passion, it was almost like a perfect segue into the final topic of the night. And, I kind of wanted to find something that was different in in terms of just saying when you've become a fan. I know a lot of people have talked. You've done a lot of them, so I'm not going to get you to say why you became a Juve fan. I think a lot of the people that are going to listen are going to know that.
Yeah.
And if not, check out all Juve casts. There's a whole bunch of them. But something kind of cool I wanted to do is just, bring up the nostalgia and talk about when you have gone to the stadium, the first time you gone to the stadium, and kind of, just tell us about the atmosphere and kind of some things you remember and some good things, some bad things. Let it rip.
So for me, I've only been to the stadium once. And it's J Stadium, Allianz Stadium, and it was in 2018. I was on my honeymoon with my wife, and we took a trip through Italy, and we picked up tickets for Juve versus Milan, the match where Bonucci made his return. And we had incredible seats, but we did the stadium tour, and that's how essentially my podcast started. Taking the stadium tour and waiting in this line, and just conversing with these people from all over the world, because you're waiting in line to get to go to this tour, and you're waiting for a while, so naturally you're just going to spark up a conversation, or people are asking questions, something Juve related, and then I listen in, and I'm like, and then naturally a discussion breaks out. So you start meeting people all over the world, and I love that. So when I got back home, I instantly missed it as the season got closer and closer, because that season was coming to an end. And then throughout that summer, the transfer market and stuff, and you start ramping up, and I'm like, man, I wonder what everybody's thinking, wonder what not. And then I got turned on to Twitter by a buddy of mine who uses it heavily for NFL. He told me, I was like, you should check out Twitter. So I did. And then, I find some other podcasts, stuff like that. And I'm like, well, it's just not quite the same, because I need to reenact what I lived through when I was there. And that's the actual people, in the grounds all over the world. Just want to get a point of view. And that's why I started the All Juve cast. But the feeling there was honestly it was surreal. I mean, take the stadium tour, and everything about it is you're in a dream almost, because for me, Juve's all I've ever known since I've been a young kid because of my father. I remember being so young, and it's games are on at 3 a.m, 4 a.m. here, and I could hear him yelling from the living room, and I'd get up and walk out in my pajamas, and it's what what's going on? And he's just watching a game. But you'd think an intruder came in the house, or what the hell's my dad fighting in the living room with some guy, like a burglar or something? What's going on? He's just watching Juve, and then I'd sit down there, and we'd watch games, and he'd talk to me about players and stuff like that. And then as I got older, it became the thing. That's what we do on the weekends. We watch Juve. And then, I mean, you're paying for your ticket. You're going through the museum, and even just the wall, black and white with the letters Juventus, it's cool. And then you walk in, and you see this, these glass cases with, Ferrara, Del Piero, all these guys, Sharea, you see the Ballon d'Ors, and it's crazy, man. It all hit me at once. It all hit me at once, and it's it just brought back all these memories
of my holy shit moment.
And it's crazy, and then at the end of the tour, you walk in this room, and it's just 360 screens and ceiling and stuff, and then they just play this video montage on Juve, and you just get crazy goosebumps, and the hair on your arms rises, and it's wild, man. It's wild. And then that's not even the game.
Yep, exactly.
All of a sudden, it's game day the following day, and oh man, we spent time in Turin, so we just saw some sights, had a bite to eat, walk in the streets, and then we get back to a B&B that we stayed right across the road from the stadium. Awesome family-run place with a unreal restaurant underneath that turns into a nightclub as well. Like, it was awesome.
Shit.
It was awesome. So then we go across because it's like gotta be 2.5 hours, 3 hours to game time, and like I could hear from our room. Like, I was just like, we gotta go. And I was like, well, the game doesn't start for like hours. I'm like, yeah, I can hear them. Like, let's go. And yeah, you're just walking out there. There's people just drinking beers, like having panini, like just hanging out, and it's a good time, and eventually comes a time where you say, okay, let's kind of somewhat beat the rush just to get in. Because we don't know. That was the first time.
Exactly.
We've never been to a game. So we go in there, go through the clearance. I was kind of glad we did it a little bit sooner because, yeah, I got crammed pretty quick. Get through, and then you find your gate, and man, walking through was just like still unbelievable, because like you're looking at this little square in this entrance, and you're getting closer, and it's getting bigger and bigger, and you see the green, and then you see the white seats in the back, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and then it's like you finally step out, and you're just like, boom, and you're just like, holy shit, like for a guy,
it's like hitting a wall.
Yeah, man, like it just smacks you right in the face. And from a guy coming from, Kamloops, BC in Canada, it's a hell of a long trip to get there. And it's bucket list stuff for me, right? So, you get there, and then it's like, boom, everything. And instantly you're just soaking up everything. The players come out, Thunderstruck plays, the players come out, they warm up, and you're watching the kids like running to the glass. So our seats were just off center. Seats 1 and 2, front row. So we were right there, like smack dab against right where that glass is.
Yeah.
And it was unbelievable. The Milan fans were in first in their sector, and they were so loud. It was unbelievable. And then obviously once the Curva came in, and then they just went back and forth with chants, and it was like, I just had my cell phone going steady. I remember it.
Yeah.
And it was incredible, man. And then came the time of the actual match to start, and my God, man, I think like even warm-ups, I started getting like kind of emotional because you see Buffon out there, and he's clapping his hands for the Curva and stuff, and just giving them the thumbs up and stuff and acknowledging them. And then they come out to play the match, and man, the match starts, and Dybala scores 8 minutes in, quick turn, short ripper, short side, beats Donnarumma, and man, right there, numero 10, Paolo, Dybala, and everybody's screaming, and man, I was losing my mind, and right at that moment, like my dad texts me, and man, I got emotional for, a couple minutes, because like it's the guy, like, no disrespect to my wife, I loved having her there, but I mean, I would like, I associate
Definitely.
Juve with my father and all those memories, and I got a little emotional, right? And I'm hoping that one day I can take him there, but it's something that, and this is why we get back to the fans and the atmosphere and everything, because this is pretty recent, but the atmosphere was still incredible. Part of it had to do with Bonucci's return, and it was just a feisty atmosphere. And it was awesome, man. And the people sitting around me, it was almost like my dad was there, because these older Italian gentlemen, and I felt right at home, and we're high-fiving after the goals, and, I can hear them yelling, I can hear them saying things about Allegri, and I'm like, man, it really does feel like my dad's here. But it's cool. It's something, that's why, like, I have concerns about what it's like for, fans currently going, and if they're getting that full value, because when it's like that on nights like those, you can't beat it. You can't beat it. And, like a Champions League one, like, my God, I've talked to people who were there with Atletico, and I could only imagine.
Or even Real Madrid, the semifinal.
Yeah.
Like, that's next on the list. But yeah, like I couldn't even imagine. I don't even know if I'd be able to like. I would just be. Again, I would be in tears the whole time. I don't even know how I would react.
Have
It's
you
like,
been?
yeah. So again, I've only been to the stadium, and I've had a lot of those same feelings and emotions. But for me, from 2015, 2016, I'd worked up north, Fort McMurray, Alberta, in oil and gas. So I was able to buy myself a Fiat 500, put money away in savings, and have a nice European vacation for about 2 months. So I was with my classmates for about 10 days in Switzerland, and that was coming up for about, I believe it's about the 2 week mark before you can buy tickets. So my buddy was like, "Yeah, no, I'm gonna come with you to Turin." This guy doesn't really watch sports, but he was like, "Yeah, let's go, let's do it." I'm like, "Oh, this is awesome." Now, the beautiful part about Juventus is even if I'm J 1987 member, I can't buy him a ticket. So I had to wait all the way until the general admission because that's the only way you're going to get tickets. So full credit card with nothing on it, ready to go, sitting in a hotel in Basel. Okay, here we go. We're going to buy those tickets. Type everything into Liz ticket. Nothing. First time, nothing. Some seats go away. Nothing the second time. Nothing. I'm like, they're going to make me call TD. Can the bank I have. Pretty much by the time I call them, I get back in, boom, sold out. And this was the last game of the season in 2015-16, so that was going to be the trophy ceremony. So again, it's a game that is going to sell out pretty quickly, right? A lot of people are going to want to go. And so I'm like, I'm pissed. I'm like, oh, we booked everything to Turin, to Torino, and now I'm not going to be able to go. So I'm like, what am I going to do? I start talking to Maurizio from around Turin. He's like, well, there's a couple options I can see. I know it's going to be a game that's very important, so it's going to be tough to find seats. But and then I just took, I said, you know what? For some reason, I was like, let's just go with Viagogo. I know I've heard so many bad things about it, but I'm like, you know what? You only live once, and I don't know when I'm going to be back here next. And unfortunately, I haven't been able to go back. But and so I go on there, I buy a ticket. I think it worked out to about 475, 500 Canadian dollars, and it seemed like a pretty decent seat. So I finish up with that trip. We end up going to London and then Milan. So we're in Milan. I get an email from Viagogo, and they're like, "You have to please send me your passport." And I'm like, "Oh, here we go. This is where it starts." So I send them my passport. Okay, before the game, can you please meet at the hotel at this hotel called Hotel Master? And I couldn't believe it. I'm like, in Torino, Hotel Master. This sounds like sketch. This is already sounding like something's gonna go wrong. So I'm nervous for the next. Then all of a sudden, Juve decides to move the game from Sunday to the Saturday. And I'm like, okay, so just throw all my train tickets, my hotel. So I talked to Luca, who's at the Hotel Pontes. Again, hilarious guy, great host. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have to come in a day, or I'm gonna have to have an extra night, no problem. Buy a new train ticket. I'm like, Eric, I know you really wanted to go to this game, but I don't know if you're gonna want to spend these kind of prices on these tickets. I'm just gonna go. I'll meet you in Torino, and it was crazy. So next day I get up really early, get on the train, and me not thinking the game's at like, I believe it was like 1 o'clock or 1:30. And I'm like, shit, well the train's gonna get there at 12. So I'm like, okay, I gotta get all my luggage, throw it in, get to the hotel, which I planned out all by like bus. For the life of me, I couldn't find to get a bus ticket. So I just said, "Fuck it." I got onto the and just sat there, and I was like praying. I was like, "Please, no ticket guy come stop me and give me like this massive fine." Nothing. It was at least like an hour and a half. This from I think it was Porta Nuova to where the hotel is. Get there, throw everything. I'm already nervous as one, I don't have the tickets, and so the blood pressure's through the roof. Meet Luca, and I'm like, Luca, just can you please call me a cab? I got to get to the stadium. I got to see if I can get these tickets. And he's like, no, wait, there's another fan who's also here. And I was just like, no, just get me in the cab, get me in the cab. So I went upstairs. I threw everything through on my Juve jersey. Was in shorts. Get in the cab. Go to this place called Hotel Master, which is like on the corner of Corso Grosseto, which is like right on the corner of the stadium. So I get out of the car, I pay the cab, and I walk into this walk up, and I'm like, okay, well, let's see. Walk up the stairs, I see this kind of like flag of like Via Gogos. I'm like, okay, that's looking a little bit better. Knock on the door, and the guy's like, and I'm speaking to him in Italian, and he's like, okay, come over here, let me see your passport, whatever. Gives me an envelope. I see the ticket, name, birthday, because you got to make sure, guys, if you're going there, make sure your full name matches your ID and you have your birthday, or else you're gonna get problems at the gate. As soon as I was like, oh, okay, now I'm starting to feel a lot better. I went to meet up with Maurizio and from around Turin and a whole bunch of other Juve fans. It was unbelievable. We're drinking beers and just chilling in front of like the food trucks they have there and the different memorabilia.
Yeah.
And then so yeah, we're talking, and Maurizio's like, "You better start going, or you're not gonna want to miss the pregame." Like you said, you got to get there. And I didn't know that you had to go to a specific gate. It's not like here where you can pretty much go in any gate and then walk around the stadium. There, it's all divided. So I walk around. It starts pouring rain. Finally get into the stadium, like you said, exactly the same. You walk through, you see that little window of light, and you just walk in there, and it was just like, holy shit, I can't believe I'm doing this right now.
It's
Walk down. I think I was fifth row or third row on the Tribuna Est lateral, and so I walked down to my seat, and there was these two like youngsters, right? And I think one of them was in my seat, and I was like, I speak to him obviously in Italian, and I say, that's my seat, right? And I don't know if they were like, if they had come down because they wanted to get better seats, but they kind of were like, I don't know, they were looking around, seeing if anyone was gonna like, and apparently no one came to those seats. I was like, okay, whatever, that's fine. They seem pretty cool. And then again, like you said, Thunderstruck comes on, the players come out for warm up, and yeah, it's surreal. They go back in, and at the beginning of when they do that little light show at the beginning, and then the players come out, right? Everyone puts their scarves up and sings "Una storia di un grande amore," and that's where I started. That's where I really got emotional. It was crazy, but then the thing is I had been so quick to get there, I didn't even think of bringing a scarf. Like I had like 4 in my carry-on, and I didn't have it. I'm like, oh shit, that's kind of sad. And then I look over to my left, and those 2 kids are like, hey, do you wanna hold up the other end? And I was just like what a moment, like. And we just, we sang our hearts out, and then yeah, like you said, it was honestly the perfect game. The script couldn't write itself. 5-0 against Sam.
That's awesome, man.
Doppietta, Dybala doppietta, Evra scored, Chiellini scored, Bonucci. Unfortunately, Marquisio got injured at the end of the season there, so I couldn't see him play, which was kind of disappointing. But again, nothing could really take away from that. And Skriniar got a red card that game. The big mouth from Merda.
Yeah.
And that was. And then after all of that, to top it off, they handed us the trophy that night. So they bring out all of the fanfare, all of the fireworks and stuff like that, and they announce the players. And again, like, just when you're yelling out the player's name, it's great. In real life, it's another experience.
Yeah.
And and then all of the fans decided, after the players were bringing the trophy around, another surreal moment. And I believe it was, what's his name, from Juve Chicago. One of the members jumped on the field, and then they all rushed. And Barzagli was pissed. Because, obviously he has his family on the field, right? And they have all the kids around. So they're all sprinting to go back. And no, that was great. And then, again, we all went out to eat dinner after that. And, again, with some great Juve fans, Farah from Indonesia and Maurizio and stuff like that. So it honestly was a great experience. And then again, next day, go to the tour, and all seeing all that stuff is unbelievable. And again, for anyone else, you gotta go. I know obviously we're in these horrible times, but honestly, you will not regret spending the money, even if you might have to pay a little bit more and sweat it out for a little bit. But try your best to get those tickets, and you'll have hopefully get to get that experience again in the near future.
Yeah, I'm hoping to make another trip, hopefully once everything settles down.
Oh, and there was no parade because of management. I think we had the Coppa Italia the week after, but
Yeah,
that's okay. It was still, but anyways, Al, it was great to have you on for this first podcast. Yeah, I know it seems so natural just talking about Juve, and obviously you're more than welcome to come on whenever you need to be a little bit hidden, but get your nerves going. Don't say it on the main account.
appreciate it, man. It's nice
But
when somebody takes over all the organization and running everything. I like just sitting here and chatting Juve. I love it.
yeah, I definitely can appreciate that. It's like getting research and making
Oh,
sure you have
yeah.
enough to say and stuff like that. But anyways, obviously your socials. If you go ahead, drop your socials. If you guys don't know who this guy is, please check him out at all UVCast, at Striped Arts Apparel,
You
on
betcha.
Twitter, YouTube. It's all the same on all platforms. Yeah.
Yeah, you betcha. All UVCast. You'll find it on Instagram. Twitter's the most active Twitter, where if any Juventini want to actually reach out to be guests on the show, on the podcast, or some of the fun videos we do, fan focused videos. I am going to start doing some lives occasionally on the weekends and bring in a guest. And that way we get more interaction, and you can ask questions on the spot and we'll answer them, and just have a lot of fun. And obviously, yeah, Striped Hearts is on Instagram as well, and on Twitter, and just having fun with that, creating wallpapers for all the Juventini. We got the shirts going, with proceeds going to a rotating carousel of charities. And yeah, there's going to be future drops, and again, it'll just be either moments and or stars, present and or past, and we just vote on the designs and see what the Juventini of the world want, and we put them into production.
Awesome. Yeah, and for me, it's at Daniel Lenegro, for my personal account. And again, you guys don't want I gave away a Marquisio jersey at 300, I believe. I'm trying to get up to 500 on that one, and I don't know. If no one wants this beautiful
Oh,
Del Piero. I mean, again, I'm waiting on you guys. So hopefully we can get at Daniel Negro on Twitter to 500 followers. And for this podcast, it's going to be mainly on at Juventinita DAL on Twitter, Instagram, and I believe this is going to be going on YouTube first, and then we're going to hopefully get it on iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud as soon as possible. And also, before I forget, if you guys follow my account for this podcast, we are going to be giving away one of these beauties of your choice. And yeah, you will also, by winning that, you'll also be entered into Al's draw on Friday to win a Palace jersey, which is a beautiful kit. So hit that subscribe, hit that follow, and until next time, guys, fino alla fine. We'll see you later.
ciao, forza Juve.